Welcome to the ObstacleDominator.com podcast featuring Beni Gifford and Brakken Crocker. Whether you want to dominate your next obstacle race or just get started in obstacle racing, you're about to discover every tactic you need to know, from gear to training to nutrition. Get the latest tips from the trenches, get your questions answered, and show up at your next obstacle race ready to dominate. And now, here's Beni and Brakken.
So Brakken, we just had a great chat with our guest. He seemed a little shy at first, but he loosened up. He shared some really weird things about himself. Guys, he's pretty weird. I think overall I like him, but
bit of a prick, bit egotistical.
Yeah, bit of a prick. Not one of the nicer bald guys. I mean, you're much nicer. This guy is kind of weird. But this is episode 415. Did we have Corina on that? No, it was Lima. He was 14. So this guy was episode 15, and I think it went, I don't know, how do you think it went?
I think it meandered a bit, but like it had some good closure at the end. It was okay. Good, not great.
Yeah, he showed up with like, I don't think he was taking the interview seriously because he had like applesauce all over his shirt or something like that. It just seemed very
slovenly.
Yeah, slovenly. Well, without further ado, let's as Brakken likes to say, let's just dive right in. So Brakken, we are going to try something new with you. And everybody knows you. There's 1,000 interviews with you as an athlete and what a badass you are and stuff like that. But I wanted to get to know who Brakken is when he's not an athlete. Because you're a dad, you're a husband, you were somebody before you got into obstacle course racing, and that person is still there, even though it's pretty easy for us to identify as, athletes and OCR people. But I want to get to know kind of like what makes you tick. Every time we hang out for a race, we end up having these conversations. I'm like, I don't want to interrupt this, but I want to just put a mic down and record that and release that as an episode. Because we cover some really interesting topics that I think could help continue to break the facade of, if you're an athlete, you're kind of a meathead. It's all about being carnal in your body and stuff like that. Not so much
carnal, huh?
Carnal. I don't know. That goes in the same box of words. I don't know. Okay. And so I want to get to know you, starting from who you were as a little kid and how it structured the big manly man we see sitting in front of us right now.
So we're gonna do a Get to Know Brakken Crocker podcast.
Yeah, exactly. So
we're gonna follow this up with Get to Know Beni Gifford.
Yeah, let's do it, man. I'm down. I got some stuff to say too that normally you can't do on a regular platform. So
no, I agree. I've been thinking we need to introduce the audience to the non-obstacle dominator, Beni Gifford.
Yeah, well, I beat you to it here with this one, so.
Yeah, well, you sprung it on me. So we're approaching this as if we are not two hosts of this, as I'm coming on your show and you're getting to know me.
Well, I mean, you don't have to act like you are not.
I mean, I'm not going to be like, hi, I'm Brakken, but this is, you're going to run this thing and dig into me a little bit?
Yeah, exactly. And at the same time that this is going to be a little bit of an interview format, the same as we always do. I want it to remain the same kind of conversation format because that's where most of the content goes. I'm just going to attempt to limit the amount of stuff I talk about myself and only format it to getting to know you a little bit better. And I'll put in introspective stuff about myself if I feel like it's going to further the conversation. But it's kind of that middle ground of conversation and interview about you.
Okay. I'm on board with that.
Sweet. Okay. So we need to start from the beginning. First of all, the basics, just so we can paint a pretty little picture. Where were you born?
I was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
All right. Now, where on a map is that for those listeners, not me, who are geographically challenged?
If you know Chicago, you just follow the lake up about 1 hour, hour and a half.
Okay. So cold area.
Lake Michigan. If you know Lake Michigan.
I know
make
Michigan.
A hand like this. You got the Lake Michigan here, and I sit down right about in there.
Okay. Sweet. Okay, so you grew up.
Our state touches Canada.
Nice. So you were into hockey and maple syrup. Is that a big part of your childhood?
I touch Canada. I'm not Canadian.
Yeah, but
although we did make our own maple syrup growing up.
Really? Wait,
yes.
Did you live on? Well, I was about to say a tree farm. Where the hell do you get maple syrup from?
No, in our neighborhood, every single house had a maple tree planted on the street side of the front sidewalk. You had that little median strip. So there were something like, I don't know, 18 or 22 houses on each side of the street. So we had 44 maple trees. And when I was probably like 5 or 6. I remember my dad got the idea, we're going to tap the trees this year. So we tapped the trees and hung our buckets and harvested all the sap that drips out, and then boiled it down and made our own maple syrup.
That is so freaking cool.
We tapped everyone's tree on the block.
And it also sounds slightly like infringing on other people's property. I don't know. Is it their tree?
I don't want to date myself, but I feel like I grew up in a different time than we're in right now. And we had a very like close knit neighborhood. Even though we didn't all get along or like each other, we all knew each other very well and had a working relationship with everyone on both sides of the block. And so my dad just like went door to door, like, hey, this is what we're doing. You want in on it? Or are you cool if we use your tree? And no one cared if we used the tree. So we did that. But it's depressing how much maple syrup you get from how much sap you collect.
What is it? What, you get like a bucket full? How much maple syrup?
You get a clear liquid that drips out of the tree. You basically just gouging the tree. You make a hole in it, and it drips down out of the little. It's like a little pipe you nail into it with a hole at the bottom. You hang your bucket around it, and it drips out of the hole into the bucket. You get this clear liquid, a very sugary liquid, and you have to just boil it down and just keep reducing it down until you get maple syrup.
Yeah, I think
it's like a 50-to-1 ratio. It's depressing.
I think I learned about that in the Hunger Games. She like stabs the tree, but she like drinks water or something somehow. It's like a water tree.
Yeah, no, I'm no Katniss Everdeen, but we did stab our trees.
Dude, she is gorgeous. That's my celebrity crush. Oh, dude, I think we already did this. Who's your celebrity crush?
It was a tie when I was growing up between Kristen Stewart and Brad Pitt.
Kristen Pitt. I like it.
Yeah, and Ryan Reynolds was also pretty big for me at that time.
That's awesome.
Funny, he's really spanned the generations.
Yeah, that guy's a total beast. So growing up in you had how many brothers and sisters?
I have one brother and 2 sisters, one older sister, one younger sister.
So how were you as a kid? Like, we see you now, but a lot of the time the person who was in middle school or high school is a completely different person than the adult who's got a family. So like, what kind of, were you really close with your family? You guys all really active? Were you close in school?
Yeah, we were all those things. We were very active and very close. We were an athletic-based family from the start. My parents did not push anything. They just pushed that you be involved with something. My dad was an athlete. You know, he was a D1 college quarterback, had a few tryouts with the NFL, played in the Canadian Football League for a little bit. My mom was an all-state sprinter and volleyball player.
Wow.
And so they were athletes, but they didn't push us into it. My dad's also very artistic and musical. So we were allowed to do whatever we wanted. We just all gravitated towards sports. And they never pushed, but they supported anything to whatever extent we wanted to the point, like, my sister moved away from home when she was 12. She moved off to Roswell, Georgia, to join an Olympic training center.
Holy crap.
For rhythmic gymnastics. So she split time between Roswell, Georgia, Colorado Springs, and Lake Placid, New York, from 12 through 17, just chasing the Olympic dream. So like they fully supported. She moved in with a surrogate family down in Atlanta to 12. So like,
holy
they
cow.
didn't push, but they, like, anything you wanted to do, they supported fully. And we kind of like, we became this like us against everyone else team. It felt like we kind of talked about it with the Kempsons a little bit, how like Macaulay and I, my younger brother by 3 years, we didn't have sibling rivalry. Like, we grew up competing with each other against everyone else. Even if we were supposed to be competing against each other, we always felt like we teamed up in those instances to, like, a win for either of us was a win for the family. And so we kind of, that's the way we were brought up. We didn't have like that stereotypical, you know, I fought with my brother, I'm tough because he beat me up every day. We were tough because we competed with each other every day with each other.
That you kind of ended up answering a question that had been on my mind for a while, which was, what do you think, I mean, whether it's a combination of genetics or, you know, nurture and how you were raised, I was going to ask what you felt like on like a really base level funneled you towards athletic expression. Because for me, it was, I didn't realize this until, I don't know, talking with my mom a few years ago. And she was saying that, you know, you were the second youngest. And so you were the smallest for a long time and you got pushed around so much that you like develop this need to be able to, make it so you could never be pushed around again. And that stemmed into athleticism. And for you, it sounds like it's the opposite, where you didn't have the siblings who were, there were 6 of us. And so it was always kind of like a clamor for attention and stuff like that. And it sounds like with you, everyone was kind of like, it was a team effort, more, less than it was a battle. And so that resulted in, I guess, the team mentality of sports.
Yeah, that nature versus nurture, conversation is an interesting one. And it was obviously both for us. We were nurtured to do what we wanted to do, but like from a very early age, like what we are now manifested. We look back, we have these pictures from Mother's Day one year. And we wrote my mom promises and framed it for her, like things that we always got in trouble for. And my older sister wrote, I will not dance in the kitchen anymore. She always was dancing, and she was always like knocking into things, getting in people's way in the kitchen. My mom always had to kick her out, like, you cannot dance in here. You need to go dance somewhere else. And my sister just 2 weeks ago graduated with her master's degree in some form of modern dance from University of Illinois. And she's been dancing since rhythmic gymnastics ended. She danced professionally in New York City, and now she's pursuing it on the academia side. Like that was her. She's a little girl, danced, and she as an adult still does. And mine was, I will not throw balls in the house, and I will not break any more windows. And because like from early on, like we have pictures of me when I was just crawling around in my diaper, holding a wiffle ball bat and hitting a ball back and forth across. And as soon as I could walk, I was outside dribbling a ball and just always throwing. I always got in trouble for throwing rocks. I was always trying to hit things with rocks, and I broke so many windows. Like that was from the start. Ball sports is what I was drawn to, and running. And when I would get in trouble and my brother would get in trouble, they found out very quickly that putting us on the steps or in timeout didn't work. We'd have to run around the block. And it was like just under a quarter mile around our block, and it was 5 laps to a mile. And I remember very clearly before kindergarten, I was up to my punishment was in summer, it was 5 laps. Like, go run 5 laps, because that would burn off the energy, and then we could like behave.
Wow.
So right from the start, we were drawn to physical expression of whatever we wanted to do.
That is freaking cool. And honestly, it sounds like one of those families that you hear about with the white picket fence and, the perfect little setup, because I mean, obviously every family's got their things, but it sounds like a family that was very good at targeting passions, and then I don't know if I can say enhancing, at least staying out of the way of those kids, developing those into big parts of their successful adult life.
Yeah, probably the single biggest thing our parents instilled in us was the pursuit of a passion. And it continues to this day. They were the first people to encourage me to leave teaching, to encourage my sister to join a dance troupe in New York City, to encourage Macaulay to move out to Colorado with us, to encourage my little sister to go play basketball overseas. Like we all had the opportunity to choose adult life, and it just from day one have told us, like, you have your entire life to work a job. They look at life like it should be reverse retirement. In your years when you can use your physicality, you should pursue the things with the energy you have, and you can work in retirement. Like when your body is not able to compete anymore, you can go sit at a desk or whatever. And they don't believe firmly in that, but they kind of joke seriously about that. Like you have your whole life to work retired at a desk. Like you have now to pursue your passions. So don't leave a stone unturned. You don't want to look back and wonder what if. And that was the single greatest thing that they instilled in us. And they were so hands off in letting us do that.
That sounds like the complete spot on way to think about it, because most, I can't say most of, it's not like I run a freaking research center, but it seems like in my experience, most of the midlife crises that happen are based off of a lack of something that they felt like they could have done when they were younger. And now they've had kids, and that took up 20 to 30 years of their life. And they had to have the job to support that whole lifestyle. And I don't know if the new generations are swinging too far. I couldn't say, if it was too far or perfectly in the middle, but seeing a much bigger trend towards, I can get married later. Maybe I don't get married at all. I want to travel the world. I was actually talking with I don't know if you ever heard this episode. It was with Ben Greenfield and Hunter. It was probably our worst audio episode ever, which sucks because the content was so good. Hunter seems to be under this impression that we can just grab our mic and go anywhere, including like, you know, in Tahoe after a race where there's hundreds of people around and, you know, somehow get good content. But we were talking about this, and I was bringing this up with Ben about marriage and families and how that's been kind of the purpose of everybody. That's their eventuality. Like, you might do this and you might be an athlete, but you are, if you don't make a family, then you are essentially useless, or you didn't amount to much. Or there was something wrong with you. And I was talking to Ben about that, and Hunter and Ben kind of were splitting this pretty hard to the right, where they were saying, you know, everyone is all about traveling and self-exploration and things like that. Nobody's, you know, setting up shop and making a family or, you know, building a legacy anymore. And we didn't really get to dive as much into it as I wanted to because of the noise and Hunter's very, very strong presence in the opposite direction, and also him being bored of talking about stuff like that. But I want to talk about that with you, because from the way you were raised there, you just turned 30, right?
I just turned 32.
Or 32, that's right. That's right. Well, look at that. You look like you're 30. And
from the eyebrows down.
Not a day over 30. When did you lose your hair? Or did you ever have hair?
I started, I guess my hair started receding up front my first year of teaching. So I'd have been 25. And for like a year or two, I was just like, my hair looks different. Like it wasn't much, but I was already buzzing my hair to like, I was using like a number 2 guard at that point. I just enjoyed having my hair short. So it was a natural progression. I just moved it down to a 1. And then after like 2 or 3 years of that, I was like, it's definitely looking a little more sparse up there. So I just took it down to no guard. And eventually, like, I don't even know what it looks like up there anymore. I might still have like a decent amount and I might not, but like, as far as right here in the front, it's definitely not what it used to be. And I had said from day one, like, I will not be the comb over or hiding it with fancy haircuts guy. I'm going to do it early and just eventually everyone will only know that side of me. And by the time I am 50 or 60, it'll be totally normal. Whereas the guy who hides it for 20 years and then has to buzz his hair, like everyone's like, oh, that guy just got really terrible looking overnight. I thought, I'm just going to own it from the start. Yeah. Luckily, Lisa liked me with a buzzed head. And so I got to stick with that.
I think that's a great plan. And I think it's hilarious that you started having receding hair as soon as you started teaching.
Yeah, I don't think it was a coincidence. Like I had real like responsibility and stress in my life for the first time.
So you're doing, obviously you're not teaching anymore. And before we get back to that topic, I wanted to get some clarity about what you're doing as a job. Because obviously you are a professional Spartan racer, but do you have anything else going on? Are you coaching? Are you still with leaderboard?
Yeah, I'm an OCR and endurance coach, but no, I left leaderboard about 9 months ago. The ride was great while it lasted, and it was definitely time to go our own separate ways. And I have zero affiliation with leaderboard in any capacity at this moment.
Okay. Yeah, because there's got a little bit of confusion about there. And here you.
In what way?
Just people not being sure that you're completely separated from leaderboard.
Yeah, that's tricky because when I left, I wanted to do so as, amicably as possible and not. Realistically, I was the only OCR presence there. The other people there had no OCR or endurance or like really much athletic background outside of MMA. And so the perception could have been really bad if I like left and announced it publicly. I didn't want the company to fold overnight because it was an OCR company without an OCR coach.
Right.
And they made it clear they were going to soldier on and try to make it work. So I didn't ever make it. I announced and talked to the athletes on the team about it, but I didn't make anything publicly. But I guess, yeah, that has left a little confusion to people who move on because they knew me as part of that. And as far as I know, they're probably still, my picture's probably still up on it. And like some of the videos I've done for it are probably still up there. And the podcasts we did are still up on YouTube. So anyone who finds that podcast probably assumes that nothing's changed. But yeah, we have officially separated.
Man, I feel you on that.
Contact at all.
I feel you on that. Company still using your likeness. I can't get this dirty mud wrestling company to take my photo down. It's still up there. I'm their famed champ, and they won't get rid of it.
Are you getting kickbacks on that?
No, man. My
every time some sweaty, greasy guy clicks on your.
I get contacts from it. I don't get any paybacks from it, so that sucks. But yeah, that's unfortunate.
No, to be clear, like they're legally able to use my likeness.
Right.
I mean, what they want to do with the company is their thing. I don't have any contact with them. They have no contact with me. But yeah, I do my own coaching on the side now. At the moment, just work one-on-one with athletes, and just athletes that I have kind of a vetting process where I go through and I make sure that it's going to be like a good fit, kind of like dating. You know, like the stuff I had been doing in the past was very much team-based, and that's cool and all, but like I missed that really personal connection. And so now I just take on people that I feel like a connection to, like I'm going to be engaged in their training, they're going to be engaged in my coaching, and we're going to kind of grow with each other rather than just another faceless name on the wall.
Right. Now, does that come fully equipped with a guide on how to get applesauce on your shirt?
This is not applesauce. This is frosting.
Ooh.
Braden has a summer birthday, and they're in their last 2 weeks of school now. So any birthday, he's in kindergarten. So any birthday they haven't celebrated, they do their fake birthdays at the end of the year. So his is tomorrow. And we were making our cupcakes, and Mira, little 1.5-year-old Mira, we looked over and she was just taking it and just painting herself with the frosting. And so when I picked her up, I got it all over me.
That's fantastic. I was expecting you to say it was like sped up or something like that, but you don't have any infants or anything anymore. So
no, she's our youngest, 1.5 years.
Yeah. That's freaking awesome. That's one of those videos. Do you catch yourself torn on moments like that between getting the camera out and just like being present and enjoying it? Or is it more of like,
I'm lucky because I'm not an Instagram dad and I don't have any desire to be. I like being in the moment, and Lisa's very, very good at capturing things, and she likes adding it to Instagram, and she is able to she's magical about she'll be interacting with us, and then later on she'll show me the footage on her phone. Like, how did you manage to do that? So I don't do a single thing, an ounce of photography with our kids, but Lisa captures it all.
Nice. Okay. That's I don't know what was happening earlier. I don't have a kid, but there's 3 dogs in my house, and there's constant moments of, I'm a little obsessed with my dogs, of they're probably just sleeping, and I just want to record them sleeping. And I'm like, no, you stop that. You just enjoy those beautiful little things. But anyways, so I wanted to ask you about.
Actually, I wanted to go back to that coaching racing thing, because I just got a question about that today. Someone's like, are you still racing full time? And that's a funny question, because obviously my performance as a top 5 person in the world doesn't exist anymore. I'm not showing up to this year. I went to two national series races and took 7th and 9th, or 7th and 8th. In the past, I don't think I missed a podium for 2 or 3 years on that kind of stuff. But so my percentage of what my life is.
I have to add a disclaimer in there, because for anybody not listening, if you're not aware, it's just what year or what Spartan decides to put their focus on that is totally shifting this, because Brakken is always a 1 to 3 contender in the stadium series or, any of the short course performances. But Spartan this year, for some reason, is not they're putting basically 0 emphasis on those things. So it's kind of annoying. We have to remind ourselves that it's only literally where Spartan happens to be looking right now, which is what decides who is able to do full-time or professional. It's not even it's not even saying anything about your athletic ability. But sorry to interrupt.
But from my perspective as a businessman, I guess, when I first started this, it was 90% racing and 10% coaching. And each year that puzzle has shifted a little bit, and the percentage has changed, where now it's 90% coaching and 10% racing. And it's been an interesting change throughout. Started in 2011, I ran my first race, and now it's 2019, and I took 1 year to try to do this full time, and that shifted into 2019 now, still doing it. But the way my I guess, as you call it, my professional racing that's in quotes now. I used to make my full, I went 2 straight years where I lived entirely off winnings, and comfortably so. And that's not even close anymore. If I tried to live off winnings, we'd be in a homeless shelter in month 2. So that the sport's changed, and my place in it and my role and how I even earn my income in this sport has changed as well.
Yeah. Okay. I wanted to, we got off on a lot of
little Brakken growing up.
Right. I want to know about the way you were raised and the way your family was structured and how supportive your parents were and stuff like that. How do you feel, or do you feel like that has helped structure the way you are with your kids now? Because I remember when I was living in the Springs and the little bit of time I got to spend with you and your family, it was awesome watching you and Braden interact and watching how verbal Braden was with it almost seemed like, kids a lot of time they have no filter, but when they get to a certain age, they start realizing I have to, I can't say this or I can't say that. He was just like, he was so vulnerable and open with you guys, and you were to the same level back to him, almost like he was an adult, just like in a smaller body. And that was a very unique aspect of parenting that I wanted to kind of adopt. So I don't know, I wanted to go into like your parenting philosophy.
Yeah, again, that's, I said the most important thing our parents did was give us the pursuit of passion. Probably the second most important thing they did was the gift of being very good at communicating. They from day one, like our family, like we existed around the dinner table in our kitchen island. Like that's where we weren't on the couch in front of the TV at night or on weekends. We were sitting around on our wooden stools around the kitchen island talking. And we didn't realize that was abnormal until we started playing at friends' house in like middle school and going over there, and they just, like plop down in front of the couch and watch something, and that's kind of it. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I feel like because of the way we grew up, we have literally thousands of extra hours spent face-to-face communicating than the normal family would. And that made us a very expressive family, and it made us very comfortable with being open with things, because we talked through things. When something bad happened at school or at practice or in a relationship or anything, like we sat down at the table and you knew you weren't going up to bed that night until you had worked through it with your parents. Right. And that led to some really uncomfortable, awkward conversations. Like this one time I got caught in the bathroom. We were seeing who could pee the highest up on the wall in school. Like for whatever reason, like we were going for height in the bathroom, and a teacher walked in and we got in trouble. We were young and it was stupid, but like we had to sit down and I had to go through that with my parents and explain the what's and the whys. And we had to go through like not only why the teachers got mad, but like big picture, if this happens later in life, why that's inappropriate, and I was young, but like we had to go through that. And then we had to go set up a conference with the teacher. My parents prompted me to initiate this. I had to reach out to the teacher, set up a conference with them and the custodian who's in charge of cleaning that bathroom, apologize, talk through why we didn't understand it, and then work out a way of making up for this. And it ended up, I had to spend a week of recess cleaning the bathrooms in the school to make up for what I'd done. So that was very typical in my household, and it made us strange at times, but we just spent so many thousands of hours talking that like we know each other as well as people can possibly know each other. And that's something that I made sure with our kids from early age, like maybe not to that extreme, but that we were always going to be communicating, and they had to know that anything can be said and discussed without repercussions.
That is so cool. I need to get better at taking notes and then actually ask. You can't possibly ask all the questions that I want to ask as I'm listening to your story. I'm like, okay, I got to remember to ask that, and that, because I'm going to ask one of those and we're going to launch off on that, and I will forever forget all those other questions. But the way what you said there at the end is such an important thing that I didn't realize was important until I saw an example of what happens when you don't create that kind of open atmosphere with your parents. For this was such a complex situation, and I in the long run, I don't know. I still don't know if I should have done this or not. I was dating this girl, Caitlin, when we ended up being together for a long time. And her parents, for whatever reason, that home had not fostered the environment of, hey, no matter what's going on, you can tell us and we can talk about it. And she was so scared about one particular thing that had happened that for years she would lie about it. And I was like the only one that she told about it. And then I got looped into this lie because I got pulled, more and more into the family. And then it was like, to respect her, because it wasn't really my thing to share, I then had to actively lie to keep that a secret when we would be around her family and stuff. And it just created this insane complex situation where there never would have been one if it would have just been this open environment. And that's super cool that you're going to bring that into, the parenting style for your kids, and they won't have to deal with that.
Yeah, that trust factor is huge, but it's one that like can't be fabricated later. It had to be there from day one, or at least very early on, so that it was normal by the time you got to the age where you had real things to hide. And obviously, like we hid things from our parents, you know, like everyone does, but the vast majority of things we were comfortable working through as a family rather than hiding it. Kevin Donahue and I at the last race were just talking. This isn't about hiding, but about the incredible trust factor we had. Granted, like what I said earlier, I feel like I grew up in a different time period, even though it was only about 20 years ago. But we lived about 3.5 miles from, it was at the time County Stadium where the Milwaukee Brewers played baseball. And all summer long, when there were homestands, we would go down to the Brewer games as kids, and the Bob Euchre bleacher seats were $1 or $2 on certain days, and so we'd save up our allowance money and we'd go down there. And I have a distinct memory of changing my little sister's diaper in the bleachers at a baseball game. What that means is she was out of diapers by the time she was 2, so she was 1, and I'm only 7 years older than her, so I was 8, and that made my sister 12, and my parents weren't there.
Wow.
So like we had 8, 12, 5, and 1. We had biked down there, which means we had to load my sister up in the bike trailer.
Holy
we biked
crap.
down. You know, in Milwaukee, we biked down to the stadium, locked the bikes up, bought tickets, went to the game for 2.5, 3 hours, and then biked home at night. And that wouldn't fly nowadays.
That is a
not
very
only would most
different
parents
world.
not have that trust level, but like Child Protective Services would be. It wouldn't even get to that point. They wouldn't sell us tickets nowadays.
Right.
They would just hold you there until the police could get a hold of your parents. But it showed A, it was a different time, but B, the level of trust our family had in us, because those type of things, while abnormal, were normal from us, and they were introduced from day one. Where I remember when I was 5 years old, my mom writing a map, my dad drawing a map for me that we taped to my handlebars of my bike, and I biked to my grandma's house, which was on like 7 miles away across town. And I'm sure he like followed the first time, probably followed like a block behind checking on me. But, you know, 5 years old, biking across Milwaukee, like that's not a normal thing. But because we were in those situations early on, we were pretty independent travelers. Like I remember I flew down to see my sister when she was training at 13. So that would have made me, 9 or 10. I flew solo for the first time. And so those kind of experiences kind of help make my adult life what it is.
Yeah. I remember being, I think I was 13, and, you know, that's when you finally turn into a teenager and you think this big epic thing changes. And I remember just shouting at my mom. I was like, "Mom, I'm 13," because she was not letting me get on a bike and bike like 6 miles into town by myself. And now in hindsight, it's like, yeah, you're 13. Why do you think you're just going to go biking downtown? And what do you think is the driving force that's changed, or like what are the factors that have changed? Is it just this like overblown fear of abduction or what?
Yeah, I mean, everything's more accessible now. Information's so easy, and so we know about every single child abduction, and that's terrifying. You know, it's hard for us sometimes to let Ayla go around the block by herself. She's like this, like she's always off in her own world, and like she'd be the kid that could get taken so easily because she's just always like singing and looking around, and she'd be like in the back of a van before she realized it. And you can't go through life worrying about that. But it's, as someone who was brought up allowed to do all like whatever I wanted, I could disappear in morning in the summer, and as long as I was back for lunch and dinner, like it didn't matter where I was. I was brought up that way, and it's really hard for me as a parent to let her go and do that. So
Yeah.
it's tough. There's so many horror stories, and now people are so touchy and so quick to judge and report. For example, we had Child Protective Services called on Lisa and I a couple years ago. We were at my parents' house, and we were all working out in the driveway. It was like October, November, but it was a warm day. It was like 50 or 55 or something, like not warm, but we were working out, and Braden was a toddler at the time, and he was a fat little baby. He was like a little butterball. He was always hot, and he, like all of our kids, grew up trying to mimic our workouts along next to us. So we had this awesome setup happening where my dad, my brother, myself, my wife, and my sister were all working out in the driveway together. And they're on an alley, and that leads into City Hall. It's like there's this huge parking lot and stuff that we got to use. And we were doing an OCR workout, and my dad was working out, and my sister was doing like basketball agility drills or something. And Braden was out there, and he was sweaty, so he kept pulling on his onesie. So he took his clothes off. He was just in his diaper, running around sweating. And this lady cut through the parking lot, and she called the police on us for child abuse. And they came over, and like we had to stop our workout and talk to them. And the guy's like, all right, I've talked to you for like 2 minutes. Clearly you guys are like coherent, like you know what you're doing. I saw the baby, he looks fine. And the lady just like kept sitting there. And then she
stayed there
again after he left. She just sat there in the parking lot waiting for him to write us a ticket or something, and he didn't. And he went over and talked to her. So she called his supervisor. And then once it got to that level, they had to file a report, and CPS had to contact us. Like,
oh my God.
And like, I'm not under any illusions that I'm like a perfect parent, but like, we're pretty competent people. And we had like 3 generations of people there who are all parents. Like, it was a pretty safe place for this baby to be at. But and like, that goes on your file, and that's there, and it eventually goes away. But like, had a second thing come up, we would have had a hearing. And that's as touchy as things get now. So
that is
kind of crazy. Like, sometimes you can't take a chance, even though like I could trust Braden right now to go do anything because we brought him up that way. There's certain things that he's capable of that I can't let him do because there'll be a repercussion.
Right. It sounds like CPS has become like the reviews website of the restaurant industry. Like, you don't want to do anything bad, or else you're going to get.
I mean, maybe that's overblown, but at the same time, if someone reports to you, it's on your record. I mean, there's a file created for you.
Oh my gosh, that's so ridiculous. Yeah, dude. Anymore, I just think about. I get caught in this loop of thinking, I don't have kids. I don't even have a girlfriend. So that's a ways away, but it's something I think about because I don't want to just start thinking about how to be a good dad, as soon as I have a kid. And I always think, dude, my childhood was already so complex, and my parents missed so many things that I would be terrified to miss. And now it just seems like it's all worse. Like, everything has just been magnified. Now, the good and the bad, like your ability to be aware, like the internet is just as good as it is bad. And I get caught in this loop of, well, okay, then I'm not having kids. No, because you can't prepare for everything. And I don't know, just like I used to think that I had to be prepared for every situation that could ever come up. I've already experienced it like in my mind and figured out what I would do and what I would say if she asked me this or he did that. And I kind of started realizing that it's more about a subset of beliefs or values that you can just bounce every circumstance off of.
Yeah, you gotta have your pillars. Yeah, you gotta have your core pillars that hold everything up. And as long as those are pretty well rounded and thought out, you can handle anything that comes up.
Yeah.
And if you can't, you can't. Like, half of parenting is guessing and getting it wrong. You just hope that you get more things right than wrong, and that the things you get wrong aren't damaging long term.
Yeah. Yeah, it's scary because that line between who's in charge of your kids is so blurry when there's eyes on your kids all the time. It's like, well, am I the parent or am I the parent? And then it's like, well, yeah, okay. I could go on to this forever, but I want to talk to you more about you, because these are all things that you have in your life and that help make you up. But like, what kind of guy were you in high school? Like, were you a jock? Were you were you a shy kid? What were you?
Kind of a tweener. I was like, I played 4 sports in high school. Our seasons aligned. We played summer baseball in our section of the state. So you had 4 clear seasons that only overlapped a little bit. So I was always in a sport. So I was always in that group of people, but like, I didn't really have like a defined role. I had friends in each section, and I kind of like, as I am as an athlete, it was like jack of all trades, master of none. Like, friendly with everyone, but I didn't have like a group that I would just say I was a blank. I just kind of floated and did my thing with a few core friends of mine that did the same thing.
You just sound like every one of your answers keeps striking you in this, like, I keep trying to find the chinks in your armor or the weirdness about you. And you're just like, no, it's just like this perfect, even-tempered.
No, not perfect. Just,
friends of everybody.
I didn't have a defined role. No, I mean, there were chinks in the armor. I had this massive, massive fear of public speaking or being put on the spot. So you talk about hair. I had longer, curly, shaggy hair my sophomore and junior year of high school. And I forget if it was sophomore or junior year, like it really intensified my fear of like having to even speak in class. And it's funny because like I would compete every week and like home basketball games, you'd have a couple hundred people there. And I lived for that. And then the same people are in your class and I like couldn't stand up and answer a question in Spanish in front of them. And it got to the point where like I would take my hair and I would push it down in front of my face in class and get it down over my eyes and hide from the teacher so I didn't have to talk. I remember one day in Spanish class, for whatever reason, Spanish was like this huge trigger for me, which is funny because my senior years, I just had a blast in it, but I hadn't relaxed enough prior to that. I faked losing my voice so I didn't have to give, I would rather get up in front of the class and like make this huge big show of it than actually just talk like a normal person. Like I had these huge insecurities about that, to the point where in college it stuck with me and I considered switching majors because I had no clue how I was ever going to be able to speak in front of a classroom. I can't even answer a question in my own class. How am I going to lead one? I was terrified to start student teaching. It was just like the most stressful, nerve-wracking period of something that doesn't actually matter. And then like by day 2, it was just like, you're in the fire, go do it. And now I enjoy speaking.
There could be a lot of different reasons as to why somebody struggles with, speaking in front of a crowd, but why do you think it was for you? Was it a fear of judgment? Was it fear of not being able to express yourself eloquently?
I've never come up with it because like I said, we were raised verbally. Like we had such communication in my family. I grew up doing these kind of things. Like I always found myself in speaking roles in life. And I just hit this stage with this huge amount of self-consciousness. I would just blush beet red like the second anything happened. I had no control over it. And it was I just started sweating. And like some people's embarrassment, they can hide. And I couldn't because I'd flush so red. And I was just like, I can't tell you how someone would be like, why is your face so red? And then it just gets redder. Like, I don't know. I don't know why it's so red, but
don't point it out.
And it's killing me. And then at night, I just lay there thinking like, that was so terrible. And it's going to happen again tomorrow. So I don't know why it was. The only thing I can come back to and think of is that I was extremely underdeveloped when I hit high school. For whatever reason, the men on my dad's side of the family hit puberty like 3 years later than the normal guy. And it's like across the board, like all of us grow later in life. My dad's the shortest brother in his family at 6 foot. He has like 6'3", 6'5", or whatever. And his one brother who's 6'3", who was his wide receiver in college. My dad was the quarterback. His brother was his wide receiver.
Oh, that is so cool.
6'3", graduated high school at 5'9". Now that was a drastic example of that.
Wow.
So I was a freshman in high school and I looked like I was a prepubescent like little kid. And that's a tough situation to be in. Like I was very good at sports, but I was very small. And that kind of puts you in a weird position when you have playing time ahead of older people who look at you like this kid is like a little boy. And then you're in the varsity locker room and you're showering with adult men, essentially, and you're a tiny little boy. And so I don't know if that whole thing, like coming in is clearly beneath people in terms of maturity level and physical maturity, and just knowing I was years behind, knowing I'd play catch up at some point. But I don't know if that's the only thing I can think of that would have led to like such self-conscious years for like 2 or 3 years of high school and then a couple of years in college as well.
I wonder if it's just something that the majority of people during that age go through for almost no discernible reason. I mean, for me, it's been easy to point to the reasons, but the point is this is why I felt so dumb when my story came out on the Spartan TV show, because, there's like, my whole family died in a fire and now this is my amazing family that took me in and I had cancer and I survived. And then Beni comes on, I was sad in high school. And it's like everybody had a hard time sometime in middle school or high school, or at some point, maybe it was just after high school, but in that kind of teen age, something happens where you just go through doubts or something about yourself.
Yeah, it's got to be that everyone has their demons and their struggles. It's just that you look I manifested mine with blushing, unfortunately, but like most people, you look around and you can't see anxiety or insecurity. And so you assume it's just me right now.
Yeah. I'm not ever going to say just as a blanket statement that something that brings you pain is a good thing, but it could be seen as a good thing because you don't really have a choice to hold on to whatever that discomfort was, because you couldn't hide it. And so you were exposed by it constantly. And it was either like, you're either going to sink or swim. You're either going to fix this or permanently just hide behind your hair. So that's kind of cool that you were, I won't say cool, but great that you were forced to overcome that pretty quickly.
Yeah, you talk back about parents, and we were very much the address it head on and work through it family. And my mom had this thing. She always drove me crazy. My mom and I had like on and off struggles through high school. We're the same person in a lot of different ways. And we handle frustration and stress in the same way. And so that led to some headbutts. But she always would say, like, she'd look at me with this smirk and be like, well, you have two options. You can prove them right or you can prove them wrong. I'd be like, of course I know that, Mom. I'm not going to prove them right. Like, but there's merit to that.
Bracken, I've never seen you be so much of a kid as what you just did.
Yeah.
There with your like eye rolls and like throwing your head. That was pretty great.
Tossing my hair around. But she was right. Like I could either do that. I could change my major and hide from it. I could prove myself right. I can't do this. Or I could just be like, you need to just sack up and go through this, because you're going to always wonder what if. And that was like the big thing in our family. Like, don't wonder what if.
Yeah.
Fail spectacular. My dad would always say, like, if you're going to fail going 100 miles per hour. Like, or fail 100%, because you will fail if you don't go hard. If you go 100%, you might fail. You're going to fail spectacularly, but you also just might do it.
Yeah. I think as a quick little side quest, I think Hunty's taking a stab at that by going to the CrossFit Games.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's spectacular to go after things like that and be outside your realm.
Yeah.
And he's the personification of another one of my dad's quotes. My dad always said that when you are confident, when you lack confidence, when you are nervous, you are not capable of doing the things that you're capable of. But when you have extreme confidence, you can do things you're not capable of. and what that means, like, when you're tight and rigid, you can't do the things that you can normally do. And when you're just loose and free flowing, you accomplish stuff that you have no right doing. Yeah. But because you're just in the moment going for it, you just take things that are there. And I feel like that is Hunter in a nutshell. Yeah. He is so otherworldly, at least on the outside, confident and relaxed that he's able to just always capitalize on what's in front of him. We talk about how he never blows up in races and he doesn't have like blemishes on his athletic record. He's just so otherworldly confident that he doesn't make mistakes and hurt his own causes. He's the one taking advantage when other people think their way out of it.
Yeah. It's such a, I'm not going to say common, but glorified thing that I kind of forget on a daily basis what a fitness monster he is. And the way that what you were describing there exhibit itself to me the most is when I watch him in interviews, and he's like a master with his words. It doesn't matter who he's talking to. Like I watched the Fikowski interview where it's like Hunter's stepping into his world. He is the guy who's supposed to get, and probably knows he's going to, for the most part, get obliterated, and yet he comes into it just firing on all cylinders, looks completely confident. It doesn't matter who he's around. I'm not going to say he doesn't admire anybody, but that man does not idolize anybody to a point. It's amazing.
But I will disagree with you on one thing. I thought that Fikowski interview was not Hunter's best work.
How come?
Because I thought he had an opportunity there to stake a claim one way or the other, that he could have either brought a bunch of CrossFitters to his side, or he could have just righteously pissed everyone off. And I think instead he kind of just annoyed the CrossFitters. Like, instead of focusing on other aspects of it, he focused on what are you going to do about it? You just got to come to terms with it. You just got to come to, like, Hunter's always very good at putting the things right in your face that you're avoiding. And I don't think he did that in that. I'm so pumped that he's in the games, but I thought that was a big moment that it wasn't pure Hunter there. He had a little bit more like aggression or angst than usual. And as I was listening to it, I was a little disappointed, like, oh man, like I wish we had prime Hunter right now, because I feel like you would get so many fans.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about it as far as the purpose or the goal of the podcast.
And maybe he didn't have a purpose or a goal. Maybe he was just like, hey, I'm tired of people coming at me like, suck it, man. Get over it. And he truly felt that way. That might have been his purpose. I
think it would have been above and beyond if he was able to turn that around and do something like you were saying with it, because he was on the receiving end of that. He didn't show up to that knowing exactly what was going to go down, because Fikowski was the one who was saying, hey, let's chat. And so I think Hunter was coming, expecting a fight, guns ready. And I don't know if it's because he's Canadian or what, but Fikowski did not attack very aggressively. And then on top of that, he had 1 point to make, and he was apologetically making the point. Like, there was no really need for Hunter to even talk, because Brent was saying, hey, I think this, but it's cool that you don't agree and we're good. And it was like, oh,
you make a really good point. Brent made it hard for Hunter to take a stance, because Brent didn't make a direct claim, other than the one thing that Brent kept saying was, I don't respect the way you're going about it. I don't respect that you're cheating. You're cheating the system, and other people are basically being cheated by you. And I thought that was the one thing that Hunter could have nailed, like dead to rights there. Brent kept saying, like, we all had to do this. We all had to do this, and you're just shortcutting. And what he didn't ever like take a stand on himself was like, hey, you all did that because that was the only way. You can say that you don't agree with, but what he never said was that you would have done the same thing had they had a while. Brent was like, I was watching on my couch and I grinded for 4 years, and because of that, we're better than you. And like, you couldn't get through. But like, no one ever acknowledged that had wildcards been around, every single one of them would have gone after the wild card.
Yeah.
Hunter didn't ask for the wild card. They created a route and he took it. If Brent should be mad at someone, it should be Castro.
Right, right.
It should be CrossFit HQ, for they're the ones that shortchanged their current athletes. Is it kind of BS that Hunter got to skip the line? Well, in the eyes of the CrossFitters, absolutely. I can see why they're mad, because the CrossFit Games is they're getting mad because people are saying Hunter's going to come in and wreck you guys at certain events. And yeah, that's true. But the CrossFit Games don't test CrossFit. Regionals, the Open, test that. And what they're mad about is people got to skip that. Regionals and the Open, what they're designed to do is get the best CrossFitters to the games. And once it's only the best of the best, now let's just find out who's the best overall athlete there.
Right.
But since they're adding someone in who's not a best of the best, he could actually just be better at these type of competitions. And I understand that argument completely, but that's something to get mad at CrossFit for.
Yeah.
Hunter did exactly what Brent would have done if he had the opportunity to do it.
I think he did a decent job at deflecting and giving a reason as to why he didn't necessarily have a problem with it. He probably could have. It would have been great if he would have said, you all would have done this. I think he understood that was a moot point because nobody was going to say, oh yeah, I would have. Even if they would have, they probably would have been like, no, because I respect the work or whatever. But I think he did a pretty good job of giving an example as to why, aside from being mad at CrossFit, they shouldn't be mad about it at all, because it's like the guy from Samoa who can't even do a pull-up qualified to be there. How is on essentially the same thing? The structure of invitation changed, and that is the problem, not each avenue that it changed on. It's, look, it worked before. Now this might be a little conspiracy theory-ish here, but they have taken probably the most legitimate stab at labeling the overall fittest athlete on the planet. I mean, I'm sure that's a conversation that's been had since dudes could run and jump, and they've created the title fittest on earth. And I'm not going to say it's undisputed, but it's pretty well established. And so they have a lot to lose by a guy outside of CrossFit coming in and just sweeping the floor with everybody. And so I could see, I had been wondering in my mind, and I guess no one will ever actually know, maybe it leans a little bit towards weightlifting this year. And it's like, well, that's just what happens at the games. And we'll never know if it was to make sure that Hunter doesn't make a point here or what.
Their issue is that they've created a relatively good competition for staking the claim to greatest athlete, fittest on earth, but they've limited the pool to who gets to compete for that title.
Yeah.
Because the Open or regionals, they're so Olympic lifting for speed based. You only get a small sample size of the population. And then of those, they can crown this great competition of fittest on earth, but they don't get to choose all the best fittest on earth. They get to choose the best CrossFitters and then choose it. And you're right. He's about to be in a chance to blow that up. And so they kind of alluded to this, but what I'd be shocked if doesn't happen is they're going to have some sort of knockout qualifying rounds where they're gonna trim all the fat in the, they generally start with triathlon or mountain biking, or they do some cutesy like shake things up events and make everyone go, oh no, we're gonna lose our minds, we didn't prep for this. They're gonna save that for later, and they're gonna start with things like
snatch ladder.
Yeah, or they're gonna do the CrossFit triple, or different heavy, powerful movements, and they're gonna get rid of Thailand, and they're gonna get rid of Laos, and they're gonna get rid of Indonesia, and they're gonna get rid of Hunter if they can. And then once they have their core group down, they're like, all right, now we can do some wild stuff.
You know what though?
That'd be my guess.
If they do that though, they're almost in as much danger as if they did the opposite. Because if this year specifically annihilates Hunter, there's going to be so much lashback of, you guys are so scared that you deliberately made the games about this. Because historically, Hunter would never have even been out of like the top 10 of the games. And if suddenly he were to end up, not even making it to the, because I think you can miss enough events that you're not even in anymore. But if he's not even in the top 25, everyone's, I don't know, it's going to be kind of like, guys, you obviously did this just to mess with Hunter.
I don't know. I think they'd accept that. I think they'd say, no, like we gave him the chance he asked for, and our format changes every year, and they'll be able to point to a different structure they've had. I don't think they're too worried about that. I think they are more worried about what is the ramifications if he does really, really well. And that's why I think they're going to have a weeding out round, a qualification process, like a prelim to the games.
Yeah.
I'd be shocked if they don't do that. Not necessarily just for him, but for sheer numbers. They have to trim the fat. What do they have, 200 athletes? They've got to get it down under 150, maybe close to 100 by the time they get to the core events, so that for spectator, for viewing, for ease of access, just with number of platforms, and otherwise it's going to take forever.
Dude, I was just looking at flights and stuff because I was going to go to the games, and I actually really looked at the calendar, and it's 2 days before this event. It's actually the weekend of the Grit Games, and I was like, so I could potentially go watch Thursday and Friday, but nobody cares to watch the first couple days. Everything gets crazy in the last essentially day, and that's Saturday and Sunday of that first weekend with Grit Games. So I'll be cheering him on from afar. Hopefully you don't back out and decide to go watch him at the games. But
it's an hour drive from me.
Oh, dude, that is such crap timing. Well, at least you can enjoy it for like the first couple days, because we don't compete till Sunday. Dude, you know what? I was just talking to Kirk about this. Since Spartan took down their second time released series for the Stadion, whatever series, they took it down again. And Kirk noticed that they just added an event that's August 3rd, the Saturday before the Grit Games. I think it's in, I don't know, somewhere. It's like, but it wasn't on the schedule at all. And then they just added it to the website. And Kirk's like, that's going to be it. And if that's it, I'm really not looking forward to doing stadium race on Saturday and then flying to Houston and doing the games the next day.
Yeah, that'd be tough.
That'd be absolute freaking brutal. But we got Victor now, so that's cool. Because Kirky backed out. You were our second choice, Victor, and only our second choice. But you're a great second choice. Well, for anybody who's wondering, the Grit Games solo competition on the men's side now has basically who was going to get first is gone, because he's now doing the team competition with Brakken and I. But so anybody who wants to show up, it's an absolutely brutal event if you do the solo event. It's 5 events throughout the day, and they break down the different aspects of OCR and then isolate them and magnify them and make you go through every one of them. It's like speed, strength. Then they have like a 70-foot rig where the goal is just how far can you get on it. Most people can't even make it to the end. And then they have an endurance event, which the endurance event itself I did by myself. Brakken, you should try this before you come down, just so you feel it. I almost failed this when I was fresh in just doing this. It's a ton of running with a ton of just dead hangs, and then you bear crawl 400 meters, all kinds of stuff. And then they wrap the whole day up with a full obstacle course race, which will probably take roughly 20 minutes, which is not great because that means it's super high intensity. But anyways, it's going to be brutal in Houston at the Grit Fitness Gym, August 3rd and 4th.
I can't wait to win the individual now. I suckered you guys out of it. Now I'm going to transfer in.
You're messaging Kenny, hey, I need you to ditch the team. Just take that, what was it, like $800 or something like that? I don't know. That would be a dick move. And then Victor and I would both have to get back in solo and do everything we could just to smash you. We would have an agreement to just throw certain events and give every other event everything we had. But
I like that.
dude, if you weren't an athlete, what would you be doing? Like you said that your dad had a lot of musical and artistic talent. Is there anything that you've done that's kind of, or interests that kind of fall by the wayside? Just you're so focused on athletics.
You know, I never even explored it. From day one, I was hyper competitive, and that lent itself to athletics, and I just wanted nothing else. Like I was convinced. We didn't know it was strange what we were living in. Not that it was strange, but it was not normal. And I didn't know it was not normal not to be a professional athlete. Like my dad had been a professional athlete, and my older sister was, competing for Team USA. And I just, like, my brother and I were always just trying to figure out, like, what sport are we going to choose? Like, do we want to play football, or do we want it to be baseball? Do we want to do basketball? Are we going to run professionally? Like, we didn't know. That's not logical. Like, that's not typical. But it didn't matter. And by the time I finally realized, like, yeah, I'm not going to be a professional athlete. Like, I bounced out of a D1 running program because I wasn't good enough, and I got cut from a D3 baseball team because I wasn't good enough. By the time that finally hit me, like, I was in college, I was on my way to teaching, like there was nothing left to explore. So I just went into teaching and coaching, and I found that I really loved both of those. More so coaching because there was less, legislation and politics involved in most sports. But yeah, I never explored other real hobbies outside of competition. I don't know. If it wasn't for OCR coming around, I would still be teaching and coaching.
I don't know, man. I think maybe you'd be a monk on a mountain just chanting and playing a flute.
Who knows? I shouldn't say never, because I have the rest of my life to explore that. But like, people think about retirement, like I'm going to go sit here, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to be on my boat or whatever. But like, I'm kind of excited I'm not excited to be done with athletics, but I'm excited for when I am done with athletics. Like what am I going to find out? Like, I know I can't sing. Yeah. I know I'm not a musically inclined person. I know that I really like writing. Like maybe that's something I explore, but outside of that, I don't know what my other gifts are, because I haven't spent a single second trying to figure it out. I'm excited to do that later in life.
That question used to scare the living crap out of me. Like as soon as I realized a pattern in my life of I would get into something years ago, there was a travel company and it was all focused on personal development and things like that. And I thought that was like my life. And then suddenly it wasn't. And then I stumbled across OCR, and OCR became my life. And so I've just gotten to this path of thinking. It used to be this fear of, holy cow, like this feels so fulfilling in my whole world. But it was almost a scary feeling of, this someday is just going to be a thing I talk about that I did in the past. And it's like, was it even worth it to do it? But now it's excitement. It's like, dude, what the hell else am I going to get into? Like 3 years from now, who knows what I'm going to be doing? And so let me phrase the question like this, so you can kind of have the ultimate, like you have the ultimate influence. Here's the thing. You have $1 million that deposited into your bank account every month for the rest of your life, whether you do anything or not. It's guaranteed. You open up your phone, you log in Wells Fargo, whatever you got, and there's $1 million fresh dollars in there every single month. First of all, okay, big picture is, what do you do with that kind of power and influence and freedom? But the first question is, what's the very first thing you do? Like right now, literally, we're podcasting. You look down, your phone buzzes, you see a notification that says 1,00,0,000, and you know it's like forever. What do you do? Do you be like, hey, I gotta go? Do you run upstairs to Lisa? What do you do?
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. I bail out of this room and I go tell Lisa.
Yeah.
We're about to make an offer on a house. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks it's ours. So I would probably just screw all that and take out the cash and buy it in cash right away. But big picture, what I would really love to do is establish an altitude training house. That's something I intend to do eventually, but it'd be fast tracked if I had this $1 million a month. I'd love to set up a all-encompassing altitude training center for the people like us that came out of college or the workforce or whatever, without sponsors, without trust funds, without anything, just, for the bare minimum investment on your end, you have a place to stay, you handle your food or whatever, and we're going to handle all the rest. We have training facilities, and you get to pursue your endurance dreams here. And then I'd love that to be like concurrent with a kind of like, how those Scared Straight programs are for kids, but they use military to like teach discipline. I'd like to do that via athletics.
Nice.
Get them into cycling or running or team sports or whatever it is, but make it athletic based, like rehabilitation for troubled youths. You watch New Girl ever?
That dude, no, that is so cool. Am I what?
You ever watched New Girl?
No, I've never seen it.
Never mind. I know.
Wait, is that the Zoe Deschanel?
So I like saying youths.
Is that Zoe Deschanel?
Yeah.
Okay, I think maybe I've seen one episode. No, that was her in the Red Bull one with Jim Carrey. Yes, man. Anyways, that's Zoe Deschanel, right?
Yep. Okay,
cool. So her and Katy Perry look like exactly like
similar.
Okay, but before I get off on that, freaking crap! What? Now I have that gorgeous face in my mind, and I forgot everything we were just talking about. What were we talking about?
The altitude training house and the
the athletes,
children who don't read well.
The youth is. So I've years ago I wanted to do some kind of camp with Yancey camp, like some kind of. I don't know why I think boys. It's not to exclude women. It's just I personally went through things.
That's where your interest lies.
Right, exactly, little boys. That I went through the thing that a boy goes through, and so I feel like I have direct influence and value I could give on that. So that's why I go to that. But a camp like that, and I reached out to this. I'm always have my radar out for something like that. I'm not going to try and cram anything or force anything to work, but I always jump on anything that sounds like it could be something like that. I can't remember. This came across on a Facebook group. Somebody tagged me in it because they heard me talking about it, and it's this group in Oregon, somewhere in the mountains, and they take I don't know if they're troubled youth or what, or if it's just young men looking for that experience where they make that an event focused transition to being like a man, some kind of actual ceremony or thing where they go out in nature and they teach the opposite of toxic masculinity, like how to be masculine without falling into the stereotype of what it means to be an aggressive, violent man or whatever. And I've been wanting to do something like that with Yancey. And I don't know, dude, there's something that can happen here. We got to put on something, whether it's down in Austin and Yancey hosts it with, maybe it's the football team that he's always coaching, except they don't seem pretty troubled. But I don't know. There's something here. We got to make something happen.
When my last year of teaching, I was at actually the school that my dad started. He branched off from the regular high school with just a group of like 6 kids who were about to be expelled. This was like 45, 50 years ago. And probably 40, 45 years ago. And just like in a one-room basement around a pool table, like started this alternate curriculum with them. And it founded an alternative school, and it grew. And I got a job there eventually. It was kind of like this coming of age story of my own. Like I taught at the school my dad started.
Why have I never heard this? That's an epic freaking achievement.
Yeah, because it sucked. By that point, that school had gone from 8 to now it was up to like 188 kids when I was there, which sounds good, except that it's not, because the number should be low. If it's done correctly. Instead of having like a 6-to-1 or 8-to-1 or 12-to-1 class ratio, it was like 18 to 24-to-1. And so these are all the kids. It became a dumping ground where the district tossed their kids that they didn't want in class anymore, rather than putting the kids who met a specific criteria of, we see something in you that needs something different. And so you take 22 of the quote unquote worst kids in the district and you put them all in one room with one teacher, and that's a losing battle. But anyways, the biggest breakthroughs I always personally had was when we were like, screw it, this day is going nowhere. And I'd take them outside, like before something terrible happens, we're leaving the classroom, we'd walk across the street, and I'd take a couple kids out and just like play basketball with them or throw a football around and get tired and get a little sweaty and uncomfortable and like have fun. And then suddenly like real things are being discussed. And the next day in the classroom, we'd have a good day. And it might have bought me a day or two of like, I don't know if it's respect, but a day or two of like legitimate interaction before they revert to how they've been. And then it would take another reset, but it was always the physical interventions that for the majority of the boys, but a decent amount of the girls as well, always like spurred temporary change. And because I had to meet curricular, achievements and test scores and everything, we couldn't make it an entire physical based curriculum. But I always thought there's something to this. If one day of taking a kid out of class, like, you cannot handle life right now, but let's go play horse, or let's play one-on-one basketball, or let's go do whatever in this lot we had across the street. If that bought me 2 or 3 days of legitimate interaction and buy-in with the kid, like, what could we do if every day was based around physicality? And so that would probably be what I'd love to do in terms of my give back with that money.
Right. And that's of course, after you've traveled the world extensively, bought a yacht and a private jet.
I feel like I'd live the same life I live now, just less with more ease of access. Like, I already travel a decent amount. Like, I just bring Lisa and the kids every time. And I'd still fly everywhere. I just fly first class now. And, I don't think that my life would change much. It'd just be more comfortable.
Man, I'm pretty happy with my life, but my life would change pretty damn drastically if I was making $1 million a month and I could do whatever I want. Yeah.
I mean, I'd definitely like drop and go more. Like, if I was bored on a weekend, instead of renting a movie, I'd probably rent a chalet in the Alps and go like ski for the weekend, but like, right. I don't think I'd buy like McMansions and jet skis and yachts and stuff. I think I would just do more of what I wanted when I wanted.
That makes sense. And I think, thankfully, in a certain way, when there's such a worry about materialism, there's been this huge shift to experiences. And I totally got with you there. I wasn't thinking, I want 10 cars and I want mansions and, all the rap video crap. I want the experiences. I want that freedom of, I don't have to be anywhere that I don't want to be. And then I think that coupled with that kind of freedom, coupled with somebody who has a good upbringing and good intentions and, they've developed enough to where they can be a positive influence on other people, that can be a huge, incredibly powerful thing. That's probably the main reason I'm motivated to get just like ridiculously wealthy, like the kind that you're like, why does he need that much money? Is so I can be one of the opposing examples of when you hear about a billionaire who, if they were taxed on like a certain percentage or whatever, it would literally pay for America's debt in like a year or something like that. And it's like, well, why don't they do that? I'm not saying I just jump around throwing money at everybody, but some of like the most awesome little thoughts, or like when I'm meditating, that make me start just busting out laughing because it would be so much fun, is picturing going to like Sonic and getting a $1 ice cream cone, but then tipping the guy like $1,000 and watching him be like, whether he freaks out and quits or he cries and hugs you or whatever.
A guy in my hometown where we're about to buy our house just won like a 200 some million lottery.
Oh yeah, you were talking about that.
But he did something cool. That was it was like a month or two ago. On Mother's Day, he was at Target handing out gift cards to moms.
That is so cool.
I thought like, that's something you should do if you get a ridiculous amount of money that's not like yours to begin with. That was a cool thing to do.
Yeah, totally. I was managing a tour for Stoker's, and it's this little chewing tobacco thing. And so I was in a lot of tobacco shops for a few months in a row. And I was at this stop in Southern Carolina, and 3 people who lived in this tiny, tiny, tiny little town in the middle of nowhere, I don't remember what it was called, who constantly visit this tobacco shop that I was at, had won different pieces of the lottery. And it was like this hilarious little experiment to see how each one of them turned out. One of them quit. She worked at the like McDonald's down the street or something. She quit. She got like her mom a car, she bought herself all this other stuff. And within a year, she had to get her job back at that McDonald's and was living in the same place again with her mom. And then this other guy, he kept his job. He was a mechanic, and all he did was fully pay off his house and just continued, like nothing changed. He didn't go out and get a really nice car. He just paid off everything he had and kept his job. And it wasn't like small amounts of money. You know, like $50K I learned from the Spartan show is really not that much money, and it goes away pretty quick, even if you're careful with it. But it was a big chunk, like life-changing, like $500,000 or something like that. And so it's amazing the different approaches people can take with that. So what do you get into as far as entertainment? Do you read? Do you watch movies? I mean, I know you're big into Marvel with Braden and everything.
Yeah, I've always been a big reader, and I've always loved movies. So one of the the interesting thing about our upbringing is that it really instilled certain things in us, but it really restricted certain things. So like growing up, we were allowed 30 minutes a day of television. And once we got a computer, you got 30 minutes of that per day. And as a result, like I just always craved that stuff. So when I go to sleepovers at friends' house, like everyone would fall asleep watching the movie, I'd be up. Like I had to finish the movie. And oftentimes I'd throw another one on because like that was my screen time for the week. And that just like, that followed me throughout life. Maybe I would have been this way no matter what, but I love movies. I love TV shows. I really like books. So those, like if I was like a millionaire, there'd probably be stretches where I wouldn't leave the couch for, a week or so, just like binging a show or going through a series of movies or just getting on a series of books, and I'd read them all. And I wouldn't do anything other than run and read or run and watch movies.
So you said who your celebrity crush is, but who's like your favorite actor or actress? Is it the same people?
It goes in stages. I don't know. When I was younger, like, yeah, I loved watching certain actors, but now I just like really good movies. I get on kicks of movies. So like I'll watch, I'll get on a kick of crime thrillers, and I'll go through like a bunch of those. And then I'll get on a kick of like revenge movies or assassin movies. I'll get on a kick of like sports documentaries. So I just follow patterns.
Did you get on the Game of Thrones train?
I haven't done it, but I finally have access to it. So this summer, Lisa and I have decided that like with this new home we're getting, it's big for us and it needs a lot of updating. It's move-in ready, but very dated. And so we're going to be doing a lot of work on it. And our relaxation and like reward each night, we're going to start working through Game of Thrones together.
Nice. Dude, at this point, I wouldn't, for me, just because I've always known it was a show that I would love because it's freaking dragons and knights and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But the two things that are going to stop me from probably ever watching it is one, the fact that they constantly kill off your favorite characters, which I flip and hate. I'm very much a Disney person. If shit doesn't end happy, I'm going to be pissed. And that's the other thing. Everyone was so angry about the ending, and I get so into characters and so extra with getting.
I don't know the ending. Don't spoil it.
I don't know it either. I just know that everyone was rage quitting on Game of Thrones online. I have no idea what it was, but
I'm cool with that. I like twist endings. I like dark material.
No. It doesn't sound like it was like it ended the way people didn't want it to. It sounds like it ended like they build up, you hating this guy for 8 seasons and all that happens.
Don't give anything away.
No, I don't know. I'm saying
don't even hint at it. Now I'm going to be thinking about this the whole time.
I literally
like, who do I really hate? And now it's going to be the end.
No, I'm taking an example of a movie I hated where it was a show called Sense8, and they ran out of their budget right at the end. And so they just had to like quickly wrap up everything. And it was like, this guy has tortured our favorite people for 2 seasons, and then he just blows up and that's it. We're not even going to see him die. Like, this is like rip your hair out unjust. And I haven't even seen it and I'm angry about it. Anyways. But that's why I'm not going to get into it. But please tell me you like The Office. You like The Office.
Yeah, Lisa and I have probably gone through The Office like 7 or 8 times.
Yes. Actually, I think we talked about this in the airport. You were telling me.
It's just constantly like when the kids are asleep and we're like too tired to do anything else, we just throw The Office on and talk.
Yeah, dude, I freaking love it. I finished it and I was so sad that it was over because the ending's so beautiful that I sat there for maybe 15 seconds, twiddled my thumbs and was like, all right, let's start with the pilot. And I'm not even enjoying it that much, but it's so much better. I tried to start watching Parks and Rec, and The Office just does that awkward, horrible vibe so much better than anybody else. And I've gotten so specific with their characters that I can't stand to start it all over again with annoying people from Parks and Rec or I don't know. My brother's trying to get me to watch some other one. But anyways, obviously, I want to talk to you a little bit about athletics and stuff. I outed you about going to the Ultra Beast. And to be fair, I said, Brakken, do you want to cut this? Because I totally forgot you were keeping that a secret.
I have no memory of that.
Yeah. Right. Well, we can just rewind back into history to check it out. But so you're training for the Ultra Beast. How has the goal of doing literally the longest, worst race we have, except for, the 24-hour endurance races, and training for the shortest course that our country offers, except for, North American 3K, what the hell does your training look like? That sounds like two completely different things.
I mean, it's essentially just ultra training, right? Or beast training, building now at this stage towards ultra training. Naturally, I feel like I can race stadiums off just about anything. That's my skill set. If all the best people in the sport came to it, I'd have to get pretty specific. But stadiums just they're in my wheelhouse, and so my natural athleticism plays well to that. And my Achilles heel is always endurance. It's always stamina. And so ultra training really, I think, only boosts my game a little bit. Will I lose a little bit of my top end speed or some of my transitions? Some people might say yes, but I don't believe so. I like a holistic style of training where even if I'm doing big mileage or big workouts and long, grind sessions, I don't get away from speed ever, even if it's just adding some 200s in or some, fly 40s or some strides or something a couple times a week. I don't believe in leaving that stuff behind. So I don't think so. You see some of the best endurance athletes on the planet, 10K, half marathon marathoners that can run sub 350 in a mile. Like if you can run a good marathon and a sub 350 mile, I think I'll be just fine training for a 6-hour race and also doing a 30-minute race. So that's my theory on it. So I'm doing a lot of threshold work. I just started with the hamstring setbacks. It's been frustrating. I'm about 6 weeks behind in my progression right now. So this last week I hit 50 miles for the first time in like 6 weeks. I should be in the 60s already, but like, it is what it is. I've got to take what my body gives me. But I did my first, incline workouts and my first downhill workouts last week, and just building that stuff up.
So you sound pretty confident, but what I'm hearing is I just need to wait till November when your season is old and you're run down and tired and slow and fat, and then I'll strike at the last 2 stadium races.
Yeah, if you want to get me after Tahoe.
Yeah, well, also
beat to a pulp.
Well, the series is basically over at that point. You can't really fluctuate that much in the last 2 races of this season.
It's going to this year. I dug myself a hole to Isaiah now, so yes. The last spot might not be decided till the last race.
Dude, well, as soon as you told me that you came in third at that race, I was like, shit, you are in a pickle right now, my friend.
Man, I went through like every scenario in my head. I never once went through the scenario of him beating me in that race.
Well, dude,
it just didn't cross my mind.
Hunter called me and was like, dude, you, I don't remember exactly what he said, but I had been so confident that you were just going to shred everybody up, including Kent, that Hunter was like, you don't have your thumb on this board at all. I was like, no, that was a fluke. Okay.
Kent's not a fluke. Kent's fit. And he's
No. I wasn't calling him.
I knew Kent. I was pretty sure Kent and I were going to come down to the very end. But I just thought after City, where with like 3 minutes to go in that race, I was tied with Isaiah, and I was kind of just like lollygagging out on that course. I thought like I'm just going to blow the doors off these people. And no, I just had a tough one. I mean, I suppose it happens, but yeah, I was at the finish line. People were like, I didn't want to come over by you. You just look like I hadn't seen you like that. And it was because I was just like dumbfounded. I just couldn't believe what had just happened. I was fine. And all of a sudden I was 10 seconds down with 100 meters left in the race. Like, what just happened? It was mind blowing.
Yeah, I remember the first time I got third in a stacked field and I was mad about it.
I wasn't mad about the position. I was mad that it happened. You know? Like, there are times where third is the best thing that you could ever ask for, but I just wasn't even on my radar. I thought like for me to take less than second, I'm gonna have to fail something, and I didn't fail anything. And
no, I get it.
It's just a great reminder. Like anything, that's why they run the race, because it's not run on paper.
Right. Yeah, no, I get it. And that's all rolled up into the reasoning of why I'm not getting involved in bets or anything that makes me think about placement or who specifically I'm going to beat. And you know what? you can say that's not a champion's mentality, that's not a confident mentality, whatever you want. I don't care. I am aware of my strengths, my weaknesses, and my strength is in focusing on having a great time and racing really well. And that gets diminished when all I'm thinking about is, I can't believe this guy's in front of me. I mean, I did a Savage Race for the first time in a long time, like, I don't know, a month and a half ago. And I was so excited. Savage Race has got to be my favorite series ever. It's so freaking fun and it's so fast. And I ended up being halfway into the race and thinking, what the hell is going on? I don't lose to these. I don't lose to these guys. What's happening? Now, partially it was because David Jones is kind of new and he's getting his obstacle game down, but he's a really fast runner. So I didn't really have him on my radar. So in my head, I was thinking, so nobody's beating me. And Victor Quesada and I go back and forth. It used to be I always beat Victor, and now it's kind of
a pretty big jump in fitness this year.
He has, and I'm having to wrap my mind around stop focusing on individuals during the race, because you have no idea how fit they are or what they did differently. You have no control over that, so cut it out. And Victor has beat me in the past 2 races we've done together, and it's getting kind of frustrating. And I'm racing him again on Saturday, and Yuri Force is showing up, and Air Force Ken.
Okay.
It's turning out to be a stacked race. I thought it was just going to be like a little brush up race for Spartan, but turns out it's going to have to run really hard. But I'm just getting focused on having a kick-ass time on those. You haven't done a Conquer the Gauntlet yet, right?
No, I have not.
No.
I did one that I feel is similar, not on the same level, but similar. A few
With the weight vest
ago. Yeah, that frontline OCR. That was a fun race.
Why is it similar? Just because of the grip taxing or what?
Because it's grip centric. In the obstacles, from what I've seen, are not as difficult as Conquer the Gauntlet. I would say they're like a tier below that, maybe 2 tiers. I'm not sure, but the weight vest it changes everything. Where it's just like it's compounding interest on your grip.
Right. Yeah.
There was this obstacle that just changed everything. So the first rig we got to was kind of nasty. It was just, it alternated grenade, pistol, rope, grenade, pistol, those like that octopus, grenade, pistol, bell.
Wait, what the hell is it? Like, it's literally a hanging pistol, like a gun?
Yeah, but it was made out of wood. It was like a handgun made out of wood. And then just like a grip that was textured and shaped like a grenade.
Huh.
And so it was all like you just really had to squeeze on it, and came off that, did a couple obstacles, came around when there was a really long Tyrolean traverse, probably like 60 or 70 feet.
Wow.
But it was not taught.
Oh, no.
The guys, as we ran up, they're like, hey, you're going to be touching the ground. Like, we've tested this out. Once you're 10 feet in, you're just flat on your back with no tension on the rope at all. So just pull yourself along the ground by the rope.
That sounds way harder.
It was, because you can't use your legs at all. And then there's your weight vest. So it was not like a compartmentalized weight vest. It was the plate. You had a plate in front and a plate in the back. So it's just
dragging.
Well, it would just dig into the ground, and then it would pull up and it would choke you, because it would get dug into the ground and it would choke you. So you try just pulling yourself, and it's like doing a plate drag backwards over your head, and it just blew out our arms. And eventually, the only way I could get through is you had to keep your feet off the ground, and you had to keep your hands off the ground. And those were the only 2 rules. I just inchwormed with my shoulder blades the last like 40 feet of it, because you couldn't even pull yourself. I was just digging ruts with it. So by the last 10 feet to go back up to the top, it was like a 45-degree angle. I almost couldn't even pull myself up. No one could. Our arms were so blown out. And so we ran for 200 meters and then did a bucket carry, ran for 200 meters and did monkey bar into twister. And like at that point on, my arms were just shot, and every obstacle was a challenge. And it was all mandatory completion. So it was like, no matter what happens, I cannot fail something. So I'm not doing that game again.
But that sounds reminiscent of Battle Frog, because in Conquer the Gauntlet, your grip gets blown up, but your arms don't really get blown up. And Battle Frog, I remember, was the only race.
You had a jerry can carry.
It was the only race I'd ever finished where I was like, my upper body is arguably more pumped and fried than my legs are. This was
I had like a 30-minute pump after the race.
Yeah, just walk
then
around.
We did that Stairway to Heaven obstacle with the 2x4s that you go up, and then it was 2 planks, monkey bars across, and then back down. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was a cool obstacle.
Now
Well,
that's
again,
interesting.
halfway through with a weight vest on and more rigs to come, it started messing with me. I kept thinking like, I haven't failed something yet, but I haven't been confident on anything yet. I don't know what's going to happen here.
Dude, that's entirely what Conquer the Gauntlet feels like. Every time I get up to Pegatron, it's a long pegboard obstacle, and I do not practice basically any obstacle stuff. I mean, I'll like do hand switch and some, Yancey Camp grip strength stuff, but I'm never on actual obstacles, and I suck on the pegboard. It's just strength that gets me through because I don't practice it. And so every single time I get to about the halfway point and I'm like, oh my God, I am not freaking failing this. But that's what I love. You never really hear these kind of stories from Spartan because they've got their equation down so well. There's never really like a dude, my back was dragging on the ground. It's kind of just like, how was your race? Oh, it was good. And so that's why I love these smaller races because it's just random shit happens and it's hilarious.
Yeah. You know what? The stories were better. The experience was more immersive, I guess, but the race was less. It wasn't a race because no one could hammer the run because everyone was so terrified of blowing up and failing an obstacle. Like people who failed an obstacle there, if they did not get the second one, they were there for like 40 minutes to an hour and then just lost their bet. The thing was, you got to keep your weight vest if you finished with it. Otherwise, they took it off you and then you continued.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
That was like your band. It was pretty cool. But like if you failed an obstacle, you were screwed because the vest just added to it. And so like the running was a joke because everyone just used the run to prep for the next obstacle. And so there wasn't racing happening. The race happened on the obstacles. If you got through it, you now had like, okay, I'm free and clear. I can jog for a while because that guy didn't. So it was a competition. It didn't feel like as much of a race.
If it wouldn't have been for Conquer the Gauntlet Tulsa last year, I wouldn't have been able to relate to what you're describing there. I would have been like, I don't get it. You're still racing. But me and Victor started within the first mile. We had gapped the entire field by at least 2 or 3 minutes. And I was really looking forward to a good fight with him because that's when I had my first big boost in running ability. And then we both hit this obstacle. And first we fail it and we're like, okay, we approached it too quickly. This takes a little bit more thinking. And then we failed again. And then we were like, okay, this is really dumb. And then we failed it a third time. And by that point, people started showing up. And then you got to get in lines. And then it's like, this isn't a race anymore for me. This is out. And then
now it's a competition.
Right. And then when Victor ended up, I don't think he ever got through. Or did he? I don't remember. I ended up getting through. But as soon as I got through, I was like, this isn't a race. First of all, I feel like I just finished the race. Like I'm pretty freaking exhausted right now. And second, the 3 guys who got through, who I think all worked for the race and set up that obstacle, they all got through on like their first try. I guess, I don't know. I'm not going to say it takes away from their skill, but they very clearly knew how to do it. And they had been gone for like 20 minutes at that point. So it was like, this isn't a race. This is just an annoying stumble through and finish it type thing. So I totally get that.
I kept wondering what would happen if we had an entire Spartan National Series race field show up to this race. I kept thinking like, what would I be doing right now if I was surrounded or chasing? Like, could I chase or would I have to just like stick to do my own thing because I'm going to fail an obstacle if I have to run harder.
Right.
I wonder if it would turn into a race or if it would just be like a slow-paced race where everyone just has to run tactically and no one can anyone who takes a chance blows up.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm a little nervous about Saturday. I haven't done anything grip intensive in so long, and this is the epitome of not just grip intensity but obstacle specific ability. That I'm pretty freaking nervous, but it's gonna be a good time.
What I found myself doing is I almost always go at 90 or I take chances on Spartan stuff. Like if it's wet, I just go at 90 and go across it. And if not, I try to skip. And I found myself doing a whole lot of just dead arm, one at a time stuff. Like I have to get through using squeezing as hard as I can, but using as little energy as possible to try to just sip from my grip strength and ration it out.
Right.
So I got a lot of practice doing it in a technique I almost never use.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for this because it's going into a race feeling a way that I usually never feel. It's like this. It's the only race I've ever had a really bad failing experience at. And so, and this is the first time I'm doing it again since then. So I've got kind of in my stomach, but it's going to feel great when I get through it because I know it's going to be fine. Brakken.
I have an in my stomach for this weekend.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, so this is the Illinois Spartan race, and last year it was a U.S. Series stop, and it was a mud bath. It was the muddiest race anyone had ever seen, and this is the one where I was in about the lowest fitness I'd been in an OCR, and this race prompted me to start training hard again.
Oh, okay.
I didn't race Saturday. The kids were sick and throwing up, so I couldn't leave the house. And Sunday I snuck out and showed up fresh to a Sunday race and took 4th or 5th.
Oh.
And got beat by guys who had raced the day before, who I had never lost to one time in my life.
Oh,
I think 3 guys beat me I had never lost to. And I just like left that race like, what am I even doing anymore? So this is like my 1 year later coming back to that race and going through it. It's been raining for 2 weeks, so it's going to be wet and muddy again. Tomorrow's the first day with no rain on the schedule, and it's supposed to be 80, so it'll dry up a bit. So it won't be quite as bad as last year, but it's going to be nasty. And I have some personal demons to exercise on that course.
It's a beast, right?
Super and a sprint.
Okay, are you doing both or just one?
Yeah, as part of my I never race back to back anymore, but as part of my ultra prep, I'm trying to use these race weekends to get big workout and big volume in. So I'm going to do the super and then try to get a climbing workout later in the day, and then come back and race day 2.
Nice. Okay.
Just as tired legs as I can come in with.
Hell yeah. Well, that scares me. I skipped my workout today because of the race on Saturday, even though this like race doesn't mean anything as far as my schedule. I still don't have that complete confidence yet to do a full like stadium.
Well, there's no confidence to this. I'm scared to do it, but like I've missed 6 weeks of ultra training. Like I have 18 weeks left until Tahoe. I need every week to count.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of which, I signed up for a 50K, Beni.
Really?
Yeah, it's like my gear check, nutrition check day prepping for Tahoe.
Dude, that just made me excited for some reason. I don't usually like stuff like that, but it's been creeping.
I've never done something like that.
What's the longest you run?
Well, I did a Spartan Ultra Beast 1 year.
Okay.
So that was like 29 miles.
Holy crap.
But outside of that,
50K is what, like 30 miles?
31.
31, okay.
So I've never raced that. I've done the longest race that I think I've ever run is 9 miles outside of Spartan.
Wow.
I did a half marathon with Lisa 1 year. And I guess 1 year I did a race around our lake, but it wasn't much of a race. It was a 21-mile run.
Right.
It wasn't. A couple of weeks ago, I did that loop, and I did it like 20 minutes faster than I had done it in the race. So like, this is by far, this will be 22 miles longer than I've ever raced outside of Spartan.
Wow. Holy crap.
Good gear check day, test out the strategy. And
when is it?
It's like July 12th. It's called Dances with Dirt. It's in Devil's Lake, Wisconsin.
Okay, so it's not
Devil's Lake is the park. It's in Baraboo, Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's exciting. I'm freaking pumped for you.
Yeah.
Well, good luck on that.
I don't even know who I am anymore.
I don't either. 50K. What's going on here in the Ultra Beast?
Yeah. Ryan Kent hit the nail on the head. I didn't want to acknowledge it, but it's true. I told him I was doing an ultra, and he shook his head. He's like, dude, you're just like grasping at straws here. You're just looking for something. No, that's not it. And I realized that is it, but like not in a bad way.
Right.
My identity in OCR for myself is tied up in podiums. Like, because that's all I had when I started the sport, and that's all I had when the sport started growing. And then I stepped away for a little bit, and I stepped back, and the sport's even better. And I'm not like consistently winning races, and I haven't been on a national series podium since. Like, it's just not as exciting and thrilling for me if I'm not on a podium and if I'm not in the mix for a podium. So I guess in a way I'm like grasping for like, what is that next thing that excites me? It's not that I'm looking for anything to get on a podium. I'm looking for something that's exciting. And for the last, like, it started at the end of last summer, I had this itch to do an ultra. And I think this is just like that thing that excites me to get out the door and train right now, is I want to prep for something so far outside my wheelhouse. Yeah,
and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But with what you were saying there, I was thinking about this earlier, and I wanted to ask you about this. Do you think the point at which someone could be considered one of the greats of OCR has passed? Like, unless somebody were to come in, to illustrate what I'm saying, Nicole Miracle has come in and made a big name for herself. But unless she were to have some kind of rock solid for the next 2 years straight, she has an Albin-like streak and just wins everything. You can't really be one of the greats anymore. Like we've got Atkins and Hobie and Cody and Lindsay, but it's almost like if you come into the sport at any point now moving on, unless you do something mind blowing, like just mess everybody up for like 2 or 3 years straight, you can't really be one of the greats or the legends of OCR.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think this is the same as every sport right now, where like early on that people just trashed their sports, and then suddenly the sports filled out, and then wins became fewer and farther between. But then everything's like the judgment is scaled as well. So like in their moment, Nicole might not be considered like an all-time legend right now, but they might look back in 10 years and be like, what she did in her time period was unprecedented. Or they might look back at, I'm trying to think who else. Let's say that Rebecca Hammond does what she's doing right now for the next 5 or 6 years, never wins the big one, but they'll look back and be like, she was one of the greatest to never win anything. And since world championships are so hard to get now, like her streak was just unparalleled, because now 10 years from now, no one's doing what Nicole's doing because it's such a big sport. So I think everyone gets judged against history and also against their time period.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no,
you might not ever have a Hobie streak again of someone winning, 18 races in a row, or, Ryan Atkins of hitting, however many world championship podiums in a row, but they'll have their own versions of that.
Right. Okay. And just in case any listeners raging that I forgot to say Albin or I don't know, one of the other names, I wasn't trying to make a complete list there, or McIntyre, just giving a general list of, but
someone's going to come in. Like our sport is due. Like, there's just no way that like Ryan Atkins and John Nelbin and Hunter and Hobie, like there's no way they are absolutely the best possible people at it. We're still just the best of who's tried it. And that's not a knock on them or me or anyone. That's just like our sample size is still too small. Like eventually we will just find, as any sport grows, you get people that are more and more fine-tuned to it. And like we just saw it this past weekend in Big Bear, right? Ryan Atkins just got outrun downhill significantly for the first time we've ever seen.
Right.
And like, so clearly he's not the best downhill runner that OCR can produce. It's just the best it has produced. And
right.
Clearly Johnny won't be the best downhill runner ever because he just did it. The odds that we just found the best that history will ever see is low. Like someone will come along and be better than him, and then we'll find someone that can do that and carry like Hunter and obstacle like Hobie. Like these things will keep improving.
Yeah, we've got names like BJ is obviously the big one that comes up. He's so young and he's already beaten almost every world champion there has been. He just hasn't been able to race one of them. Or no, he's raced them, Albin. But and then you got guys like Chris Penland who are even younger and are starting to show up. Guys, Chris Penland.
Oh, John Penland.
Or John Penland. Chris Penland a person? No, John Penland, whatever.
Sure, somewhere.
And he's starting to show up guys like Hunter Russell, who ran a sub 9-minute 2-mile in high school and has really been bringing it to the Texas scene. So I was just having to like tweak my mentality because I've been thinking a lot about the motivation that drives, like you were saying, since a kid, you wanted to be a professional athlete, and it's not that your identity is necessarily like you're screwed if you're not an athlete, but that's just been kind of who you are. And I was
thinking, my passion lied it wasn't about being a professional athlete. I didn't care about the title. It was about being able to be an athlete for my life.
Right.
That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
To not have to do other things.
I was thinking about this in the shower, which is where I do most of my thinking. And I was like, you have got to change the things that you are glued to that are keeping you so hungry during training and find really long-term ones. Because if you, or at least not change, but tweak the way I'm viewing things. Like I was thinking about being one of the greats, and I was like, well, can you really do that anymore? And if so, whatever. But anyways, it's not about me. It's about you. We have gone very, very long here. This is, I think, probably our longest episode, but there's a reason.
Not yet. It's getting there.
Are we not? Well, I guess we didn't start right at 8. But I did want to ask you some rapid fire questions that you have never heard before.
Bring them.
All right. Let's see how quick you are. How long does it take for you to get ready? Like go out, not to train.
Like from starting a shower or from getting out of the shower? What are we doing here?
Like a date. This is rapid fire. You don't get clarification questions.
If I'm showering, 20 minutes. If I'm not showering, 4 minutes.
Yeah, man. You literally have to get out of the shower and you're good to go. Like, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you don't have to do your
My
hair.
hair is dry immediately.
Immediately. That's awesome. Okay. Well, at what age do you want to retire?
I don't know.
All right.
The age when I can no longer compete.
Okay. All right. That's
when
fair.
I'm physically incapable of competing, I'd like to be retired.
I just pictured you in a retirement home, like stealing your friends, like crutches and just playing. Like, I don't know. Anyways, hopefully you're not in a retirement home. Braden takes good care of you. Okay. Fill in the blank. Taylor Swift is
the next celebrity overdose.
okay. Dawn or dusk?
No, Taylor Swift is great. She's super talented. I liked her as a country artist. I like her as whatever she identifies as now.
But she identifies as a man. Do you still like her?
Her music.
the number one male country producer. She just switches over to get the title. All right. Is it wrong for a vegetarian to eat animal crackers?
No.
But it's the concept that matters, right? It's the moral of the issue.
I don't know. That's deep, Beni.
It's very deep. Okay, if you could travel back, this isn't really rapid fire. If you could travel back in time, what period would you go to? Actually, that is. You have to stay there though. You can't come back.
80s.
80s?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, is that like why? Why'd you say 80s?
I feel like that's my favorite. It's pre-social media, which is huge to me. It's a simpler time in certain ways. It's my favorite. If I had to choose only one decade of music, it would either be 80s or 90s. And I feel like if I go to the 80s, I'll hit the 90s eventually.
Okay.
And I don't know. 80s would be what I'd be at.
Okay. Plus, you could drink more maple syrup, so there's that.
I don't know if I've ever drank maple syrup.
You've never, not even. Well, I eat.
I mean, I've consumed it, but I've never just drank it.
Whatever, you nitpicker. Who has it easier, men or women?
I'm going to say men, but there's a counter argument to every point of that, I'm sure.
Well, I want to just give me one.
I feel like women have it easier in a lot of ways, but it's really hard to be a woman, if that makes sense.
Okay, well, let me rephrase the question.
Women, an attractive woman or even a semi-attractive woman can get whatever she wants, but she still has to deal with the BS of dealing with men. Right. If that makes sense.
Okay, well, okay, let me rephrase it.
So being a man, I don't have to worry about running at night. I don't have to worry about, like, the likelihood of me being sexually harassed or raped is very low. I don't have to worry about a menstrual cycle. Like, that sounds terrible to have a period, you know? Like, I don't have to deal with any of those things, but I'm, like, at the mercy of a woman because they have total control over you.
But for the record, I'm 100% on that side. This is I don't want to sound wrong, but I would 100% never choose to be a woman, at least in our day and age. No, thank you.
Yeah, they have such an advantage in certain ways, but such a disadvantage just naturally and physically over so many things.
All right. We'll end on this last one, which either defines you or doesn't define you as a... No, this question, no matter how you answer this, defines you as what kind of dad you are. Have you ever worn socks with sandals?
Yes.
Not flip-flops, sandals.
No.
Okay, yeah. See, flip-flops are acceptable.
Wait. No.
Okay, because there's
I've worn compression socks with sandals after a race, but they're flip-flops.
Yeah. Okay. So there's intent. When you put on sandals, you got straps and you got the little heel thing of flip-flops. I'm going to Walmart, get some trash food. But okay, cool.
I'm meticulous about my appearance, Beni.
That is fit. Oh no, as we know from your introductory episode with Hunter. Well, that wasn't your introductory episode, but okay, dude, Brakken, we're gonna have to have another one of these because I have lots more. I've got notes. You can't see them, but I've got sticky notes all over the screen of just questions we didn't get to. Not even questions, just like none of these actually have question marks on them. They're things like puberty and this one over here, just like insecurities and passions and just conversation ways that we did not get.
Puberty and passions. That would be the title of my CD if I came out with a rap album. Puberty and passion.
just you in like a myriad of clothing from like your different stages of puberty. What's going on down there? Actually, let's here, you fill in the blank. This is kind of a rapid fire question, okay? I'm gonna start a sentence and you have to finish it, okay? When you started puberty, you first noticed
crotch.
That was very eloquent. You should have said hashtag crotch. That allows you to just not have a complete sentence. All right. Well, we're gonna have
That's it. You had one sentence for me.
That was it. I told you it was just a random. I mean, okay, fine.
I noticed my junk, Benny.
You noticed your junk? Well, I told you. You just had to fill in the sentence. Yeah, no, I was thinking about doing like a whole round of like fill in the blanks, rapid fire type thing.
Throw it at me.
See, well, I said I was thinking about. I didn't prepare for it. Okay, no. Okay, here, well, it is. When I was in high school, I
ate a lot of my friends' dinners because I never liked dinner at home.
That's okay. That's fine. Sorry.
That's the first thing that came to mind. I was always eating dinner over at Jeff or Chris's house.
Sorry, Miss Crocker. Your food's apparently not that great.
It just wasn't to my palate at the time.
No, that's unfortunate. You poor unfortunate soul. Oh, speaking of unfortunate souls, Ariel or Jasmine?
Jasmine.
Oh, dude, I can't believe you had to even think about that. Ariel is the worst Disney princess of all time.
I didn't know if we were just talking looks.
Oh, yeah, that would probably be the normal understood version of the question, but I was meaning like the whole character.
Jasmine.
Yeah, 100%. Ooh, so you like those dark-skinned Middle Eastern people, huh?
The extra hairy ones, Benny.
Yeah, dude, I actually just was Aladdin for this. There's an LGBT party, and it was themed A Night in Agrabah. And so they found me through some talent agency I used to work for, and they're like, hey, you look like Aladdin. Can you come run around shirtless, dressed like a genie? And they gave me a freaking monkey that was sitting on my shoulder.
Why was Aladdin dressed like a genie?
But I don't know. He's pretty much dressed. It was like the genie pants with the little hat thing. They called me a genie because I was there to like grant people free drink tickets, but I was dressed like Aladdin. So I don't
Logic didn't have to apply.
What? Yeah, exactly. Nobody
Logic
cared.
didn't factor in the equation.
There's just a hot shirtless male there, so that's all they cared about.
And you?
And me, yes. Ooh, that was good. I did have my nipple licked by a transvestite that night. That was.
I mean, who hasn't?
Right. It's very unexpected. I was walking around asking trivia questions on like HIV, and if they got it right, they got a free ticket. And around the corner came a tongue, and I was like, all right, that's a first for me. But anyways, Brakken, is there anybody that you want to give shout outs to? I see a big old product placement sticker there. So big, you can't even hide it on your shirt. No.
Frosting?
No.
Mudgear.
Mudgear. The only words in the frame.
I mean, first and foremost, it's got to be Lisa. Like from the start of OCR, she has just supported and encouraged every single step we've made. She was the one who said, quit your job, let's go after this. She's the one who said, do you want to move to Colorado? I feel like that'd be better. She's done everything. She is as supportive as someone could possibly be. But yeah, Mudgear. I've been with Mudgear since 2013. They've been great to me. Currently, I am supported by Endurelite and VJ Sport shoes, both products that I would buy if I wasn't with Mudgear as well. I have bought Mudgear products when, like, if I couldn't get a shipment or anything in time, I just bought my own. Those three products I really, really use and enjoy. And Spartan. Like, we've had ups, we've had downs, but I've been with Spartan since 2013 as well. And I couldn't imagine running for anyone else. So those are the three main ones. 4 plus Lisa. Cool. 5.
Right. Don't you have somebody who like builds you houses and stuff when you want them?
Oh my goodness, Dan Hallbach. Thank you, Benny. Yeah, H&H Exteriors and Restoration. Dan Hallbach's a buddy of mine who, if you are in the Midwest and you have water loss or you have roofing needs that need to be done, Dan Hallbach's your man. He's going to grind for you, and he supports me in my racing. So got to shout him out.
Beautiful. So reach out to H&H something exterior.
H&H Exteriors.
Sweet. Or reach out to Brakken afterwards if you've got roaches in your basement because of water damage. No, that's something else. That has something to do with water. I don't know.
I have nothing to do with roaches.
No, I mean, I don't know. You said water. You said water damage, and I don't know. Roaches aren't really water. I don't know. Okay, so Brakken, thank you so much for coming on, dude. Which is a weird thing to say to you because I'll see you on the next episode. But thanks for transitioning roles here and let me dig into your brain. We're gonna have to do this maybe like 15 episodes from now and do it again because there's a lot of things I want to do. Maybe we'll both get high, see what happens, what kind of conversations we have. He nodded his head, ladies and gentlemen. I got it on video, so that is a commitment that you have to.
If you were a betting man, what would you put those odds at of me getting high with you?
You know what? Those odds may be low, but I feel a trend of them starting to climb the ladder.
Before we sign off, show me your historical data that makes you think I am moving more towards smoking with you.
Dude, this is just like how I ended up having my first drink. It was like, no, for a long time. And then some big sexy man named Hunter came along and was like, here's a shot of whiskey. You should drink this. And then I did it. So I'm just going to throw on a wig or maybe I'll just get Hunter involved and we'll all sit around and we'll pop some shrooms and we'll have a real psychedelic, family-friendly chat.
All right. Well, I tell you what, if you win the 3K at OCR Worlds, I will partake with you.
All right. Wait, verbal shake hands or digital handshake. Boom, you didn't qualify. I will win. It's just not going to be this year. So whenever it happens, I don't care if we're not friends anymore. If we had a falling out in 2021, I'm calling you up and I'm like, hey, bitch, get over to my house right now. We're getting high.
Okay. Well, I look forward to that very immersive experience with you.
And there will be a mic present. No, there won't. That's not respecting the psychedelic experience, bro. Anyways,
for the record, Obstacle Dominator Nation, I have never been high in my life, so this would be a very big moment for me.
Yes, it would. And I feel like it is my destiny to be the man that introduces you to that world. So
here's the thing though, like Lisa will have to be there. I feel like
totally.
If I ever were, I'm not going to ever do a drug, but if I were to partake, I feel like I'd have to do it with Lisa. It would have to be a couple's moment, a bonding thing.
Totally. And
that's
then
even a thing.
And that's where Beni gets cut out. And they're like, so that's where this thing hits a wall because you guys aren't going to do it if I don't do it, like if I'm not involved, but you're not going to do it if I'm
not going to do it. But if I were, Lisa will have to be there.
Right. Okay, so I need to start talking to Lisa, not you. Got it. We're going to make this happen. Brakken, dude.
Get her on the mushroom train.
The mushroom train. I'm excited, man. It's going to be a good time. All right, dude. Well, we're going to look out for your badass results this weekend. And until next week when we talk again, I'll check you later, man.
It's been good having me on, Beni. It's been good having me on.
Visit ObstacleDominator.com for show notes, training, and racing resources. And leave your question for Beni and Brakken.